Miami Condo Mondays is a live podcast on the first workday of the week at 4 p.m. South Florida time. The program features former journalist and current Wall Street consultant Peter Zaleski of the Miami Condo Investing Club and former lender and veteran condo broker Jenny Huertas of CVRRealty.com. Recorded weekly in greater downtown Miami, this 1-hour discussion will provide a refreshing and sometimes controversial perspective on the state of the South Florida condo market from a pair of seasoned real estate professionals who do not always agree. The program won't tell you what to think about the South Florida condo market, but will give you something to think about before buying, selling, taking listings, or financing units. This podcast is not authorized by the Miami real estate industry and will quite possibly annoy many of its figureheads. Welcome to this week's episode of Miami Condo Mondays, broadcast live on the social media accounts of Peter Zaleski and Jenny Huertas.
Happy Monday, Miami. This is Miami Condo Mondays, a 1-hour conversation between myself and my co-host, my partner, Jenny Huertas. She's a broker owner at CVR Realty. Check out our website, cvrrealty.com. I'm Peter Zaleski. I'm a condo consultant, expert witness, and the founder of the Miami Condo Investing Club. What are we talking about today on this Monday, the week of the symbolic midway point of the winter buying season? Remember, everybody, winter buying season goes from November through April. Traditionally, February the 1st is going to be the halfway mark. That's the tip of the bell curve. Then we start heading downward. But symbolically, it's always this upcoming weekend, which is the President's Day weekend. That is the holiday in which both the Miami Beach International Boat Show as well as the Coconut Grove Art Festival goes on. This is when everybody comes into town. This is when the traffic is terrible. This is when there's plenty of events going on. It's hard getting a table at a restaurant, at least it used to be. And there's a variety of different activities going on. So this is the peak. And we're going to be talking about this week. We're talking about two things. One is Coral Gables. There is a sell-off occurring in that suburb, Mediterranean-style area where all of the multinationals tend to be located simply because they're so close to the airport. But what's happening is condo prices on a year-over-year basis in the first half of the winter buying season, which is from November through January, they're falling. They're falling 11 and 12% on a price per square foot basis for overall as well as vintage. That's what we're talking about. And then at the last second, a report came out from Bloomberg. Bloomberg is the influential financial news publication. They came out with a report saying that there is a spike in foreclosures over on the west coast of Florida, southwest Florida. You all remember the movie The Big Short? Well, where that movie occurred and takes place, that's where you're seeing a uptick in foreclosures. We're going to get into all that today. So now that I've told you what we're talking about and I've sort of mentioned my host, let me go ahead and bring her on. Jenny Huertas, CVR Realty, CVRRealty.com. How's it going, Jenny? Happy symbolic halfway point of the winter buying season.
Happy Monday, Peter. It's all good. After Sunday's Super Bowl, so it's all good.
Yes. It is all good. It's all good if you're a buyer, Jenny. If you're on the sell side, I don't know. We got a lot of troubling signs coming out. Jenny, This big Bloomberg story broke today. It was published. They spent a lot of time going out on the west coast of Florida and taking a look at what's happening. And what they found is a bunch of people who were supposedly in the fix and flip game. They were buying dirt. They were putting up houses on spec, which means speculation, or they're speculating that they're going to be able to resell them at a profit. What's happening is many of the projects are getting shelved midstream. So you got walls standing and nothing's actually done. Jenny, this Bloomberg report, which just came out today and they were talking about on the radio, and I'm sure it's going to spread, and Wall Street is definitely going to listen to it. Remember, everybody, whenever you get into some sort of downturn or an upturn, there's always a news story that sort of breaks the ice and everybody on Wall Street takes notice of it, and then they sort of react. Well, this Bloomberg story today, it might have been the one, Jenny, that sort of triggered flashbacks of where we were 15 years ago at the time that the movie The Big Short was based on. Anybody who's looking for a movie, remember the Super Bowl is over, so you got no NFL. Baseball doesn't start again till for another 3-4 weeks. You got nothing to do. Turn on the movie Big Short. Jenny, you remember Big Short? You remember what it was like back then? You remember all the crazy stories that came out? And what do you think about the possibility that we might having a sequel to that movie?
Wow. I'm just surprised. I mean, we're waiting for something to happen, like big, like, shake the market, not just the real estate market, but the Wall Street market. And so that will be something that definitely will push the envelope in the situation that we are now. Yes, great movie. If you are in the real estate or you don't, but you're interested, it's a must see.
Yeah, and Jenny, there's a journalist I know. He did a bunch of podcasts with me. It's a guy's called John Gruce. He worked over on the west coast of Florida. He worked at Kiplinger's up in Washington, D.C. A guy who's really well in tune with what's going on in the marketplace. He's been writing about it forever and ever and ever. What he always says is that this is the history of Florida. It's boom and bust. Remember, real estate's not real time. So what you start today, by the time you deliver, the market might be completely different. Remember, everybody, a cycle is typically 7 to 10 years. This run we've been on, it began in 2012. Remember, we had the great South Florida condo boom and bust from 2002 to 2011. We started building again. We were showing signs of crapping out in about 2018. And at the time, President Trump, under his first administration, he just started jawboning Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, who, by the way, is still in office and is scheduled to give up his chairmanship in May. But back then, the market was getting ready to correct. And because of an interest rate cut, it basically provided a lifeline to many people who were all jammed up. They were struggling to get by. Then we get hit with the pandemic. There's a pullback in pricing. Money is thrown into the system. And then you don't have to wear a mask, Jenny. Then you can work from home. And what happens? Everybody comes into South Florida. They come into the state of Florida from all over the country. Mm-hmm. And what do? They extend what should have been a correction. So, Jenny, we haven't actually corrected in this real estate cycle since 2012. Think about that. 13 years. Again, a cycle is typically 7 to 10 years. So yeah. I can only imagine if this thing corrects in a big way, it is going to be I don't want to say catastrophic. It is going to be memorable. Let's go with memorable, Jenny. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think, if we compare the Florida state, it's so different in the East Coast than the West Coast, than South Florida, than Northwest Florida. So I think in one end, we have, going to be a lot of people suffering and a smaller projects that they don't have the experience, even bigger projects that, probably team up with the wrong people, who knows. But, you always going to be able to resell. I think this is opportunity for buyers. It's all what it is. Our market is usually a great vultures market because it always cleans up. Why? Because we have the location, the beauty, the city, etc. I would be more concerned on places that are, suburban areas on the West Coast. They might suffer the greatest, and they will be taking longer to clean up. That will be my assessment on what the future may bring us. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're dead on. Jenny, I'm showing everybody on the screen the headline, and I encourage everybody to go and check it out. It was published by Bloomberg. It effectively came out, It came out yesterday at 5 o'clock, right before the Super Bowl. So it's starting to get traction today. Let me just read a couple of graphs from it, Jenny, and then we'll kind of respond to it, because this, in fact, could be one of those stories that really starts to shake Wall Street. Here's the headline, Jenny. Easy money loans backfire on rookie home flippers seeking riches. Boy, that doesn't sound familiar whatsoever. Kind of set the scene. It starts off with Dave Diaz. He noticed telltale signs when he pulls up to the house in his GMC pickup. A soggy work permit rots in the display case. A cup of coffee and a Pepsi can sit on a wall abandoned, as if workers had fled to find cover in a storm. The home, like one every block or two in the Southwest Florida neighborhood called Gator Circle, is unfinished. Diaz, a builder, works here in Cape Coral, city of 230,000 people, with a once hot real estate market that's gone cold. Jenny, the story goes on to say that many banks learned from the great condo boom and bust of 2002 to 2011. And as a result of that, Wall Street moved in. Private money, what many call hard money lenders, they moved into the marketplace. They started providing financing. Many people will refer to this as wholesale lending, wholesale purchases. This is when we buy ugly houses. If any of you remember those signs, people go, they buy directly from a seller, no realtors involved. They typically pick it up for a song. They put some money into renovating, and then they turn around and flip it. And everything makes sense as long as you are doing it within a 4-month period. That's typically how long these flippers use. 4 months, 120 days. They're able to get in and they're able to get out. And what's happening suddenly? These flippers, these wholesale buyers, as they call it, they're not able to sell the product. And because they're not able to sell the product, therefore they're not able to pay their loans. Because they're not able to pay the loans, the lenders, the private lenders, not the banks, because the banks learn the private money, the hard money. Why do they call it hard? Because it's much easier to get a loan, but it's much harder ultimately on your financials. The rates tend to be significantly higher. If a regular mortgage is going to be about 6%, you might find in one of these hard money lenders 9, 10, 11, 12% interest rate, and it's a short period of time. And typically within a year, if that flipper, if they haven't been able to trade out of that position to dump the house, they're going to have to refinance it because simply they can't afford to keep going on. Now, Jenny, here's sort of the interesting part of the story. If I'm just going to read it out to you, it says, now some of the risks are becoming apparent in Cape Coral. Private lenders, these are the hard money lenders I was referring to, private lenders have started the foreclosure process on 7.4% of the 2,000 properties they financed in 2023 alone. 2023, they're foreclosing at 7.4% of 2,000 properties that they basically finance, according to Forecasa. This is it's an analytics company. It says typically mortgages go bad at a rate of less than 2%. Jenny, the industry knows 2% of all your mortgages are going to go bad. In Cape Coral, 7.4%. That's more than triple what the normal rate is. So the story goes on to say, and the stress is growing. In 2025, private lenders made initial foreclosure filings on 326 homes, quadruple the figure 2 years earlier. Nationally, they spiked. Let me find my point. Yeah, they spiked 82% during that period. And there's a quote coming from a gentleman from Columbia Business School. He's a professor. His name is Tomas Piskorski. What the professor says is, this is a fairly new market, and essentially we are at a turning point in the housing market. It's never been tested in a downturn. And what's never been tested is the hard money lending, because traditionally it's always been done by banks. This is not FDIC insured. This is private money, and there effectively is no backstop. These are investors who put money into a fund or put money into the hands of a lender. Lender then goes out and puts it on the street. They get great returns, and everything is great, Jenny, when the trees are growing towards the moon. But somehow if the trees stop growing to the moon, then you got yourself an issue. And that's what the professor says, the professor from Columbia University. That's what the professor is citing to everybody. Any initial reaction to that? This is a different coast, but generally speaking, the vibes. Are you getting flashbacks to the great South Florida condo boom and bust of 2002 to 2011? Are you remembering the Big Short movie? What's sort of your reaction? Or is it simply just blown out of proportion? It's an anomaly. It doesn't really mean anything because remember, on the southwest coast of Florida, they had a bunch of hurricanes. They had other stuff that interfered with the overall marketplace. So Jenny, what is your takeaway on that?
Yes, always the West Coast was worse than this side of the state in general, especially when we talk about, people overextending the possibilities. I think the timing has to do everything with it. If they started these loans or start defaulting these loans on the last couple of years, it makes sense because the prices start correcting a little bit last year. Other thing that may affect them, and this is me speculating, might be that the people who works in the fixing the houses, they don't have enough workers, or when they do have workers, they became really expensive. I did notice just based on clients trying to fix, their condos or whatever, everything is way more expensive because there is not enough people because on this, everything is more expensive. So maybe that will affect the timeline. And what is new to me is the fact that it's not a bank that is insured. So in that sense, we just want to see how it goes. Because if they're not insured, the process of foreclosure must be completely different. I don't know how it works or how will we work, but that will be definitely something that we have to pay attention to because a lot of that money, like unsecured, if you are insured money, is available in the market because they had to
Yes,
have
yes,
options, because
yes.
nobody can qualify really. Nobody know, but a lot of people cannot qualify for loans. So yeah, it will be something that really triggers something bigger. We may be freaking out when we see things like that, but it's definitely a bad sign.
And just to recap, and I'm like, we're not getting we're there's no advertising from the producer of The Big Short, but just to give everybody an idea, take you back to where he was. This is a movie that came out in 2015. This sort of encapsulates it. These are private lend. Well, these are people who are analyzing the market in terms of financing that was going out to a variety of different people. Jenny, let me just read you the synopsis of the movie because I think it really sort of
Okay.
captures it. It says, the film consists of three separate but concurrent stories, loosely connected by their actions in the years leading up to the 2008 financial crisis. Remember, the financial crisis was triggered when Lehman Brothers, an investment bank on Wall Street, they went bad, and that was in September of 2008, and basically the market unraveled at that time. So going back to the synopsis, and this comes from Wikipedia, everybody can find it, says in 2005, eccentric hedge fund manager Michael Burry, who, by the way, has a Substack account. Anybody wants to follow this guy made a ton of cash shorting, basically taking short positions, meaning he's expecting it to fall in the stock market on what was going on in housing. So this hedge fund manager, Michael Burry, he discovers the United States housing market based on high-risk subprime loans, which we all remember, is extremely unstable, anticipating the market's collapse in the second quarter of 2007. As interest rates would rise from adjustable rate mortgages, he proposed to create a credit default swap market for mortgage-backed securities called MBS, allowing him to bet against or short MBS for profit. His long-term bet exceeding $1 billion is accepted by major investment and commercial banks, but requires paying substantial monthly premiums. This sparks his main client, Lawrence Fields, to accuse him of wasting capital, while many clients demand that he reverse and sell, but Burry refuses. Under the pressure, he eventually restricts withdrawals, angering investors, and Fields sues Burry. Eventually, the 2008 financial crisis began, and his fund's value increases by 489%. So tremendous surge, Jenny, tremendous surge is what he experienced. The guy's around, and he's warning everybody today about what might be coming down the pike. You want to kind of give us your take about Coral Gables, what it's made up of, what makes sense in Coral Gables, just like any and all of that?
Yes, absolutely. Coral Gables is a beautiful city. It has composed from mansions to single-family homes, and it has a part that is condominiums, especially by Miracle Mile and Ponce de Leon. It's the central location, very close to the airport. It's very popular among a lot of people because you have different options. You can shop, you can work, you can play because they have a lot of restaurants now. And Coral Gables is a cool place. It doesn't have the beach, or the water, but it has their followers, and a lot of local people live there, sort of bankers and people that work at the airport, especially people that work in the aviation or logistic industry, tend to live there.
Interesting, Jenny, and doing some of the research and reading through some of the books and stuff. One of the things that became evident is, so the Gables, is Douglas Road, going west to effectively Red Road. So for anybody playing at home, Douglas Road's going to be 37th. Red Road's going to be 57th. Okay, so that's where the Gables is. And the Merrick family, they moved down in 1899. The father, very religious-oriented gentleman, he moved down. He set up a citrus grove, and he ultimately had plans of turning the citrus grove into what would be like let's call it a retirement area for religious people after the fact. They could go there, it'd be whatever it's going to be. Jenny, the boundary of Coral Gables effectively goes down to about Dixie. And then in about 1949, the Florida legislature, they went ahead and they allowed for an annexation of land. And that annexation, Jenny, jumped across US 1. Jumped across what would become US 1. Remember, US 1, everybody, that was the original. The road is parallel to where Henry Flagler, the guy who bought the train down in Miami and ultimately took it down to Key West. So US 1 effectively, it was able to jump over Coral Gables in 1949. There was a guy called, Alfred Vinning Davis. He made his money in Alcoa. Alcoa's a big chemical company. Made his money there, and at the ripe old age of 82, started buying up dirt. and ultimately transferred his dirt into a publicly traded company. And that company was called Arvida, Arthur Vanning Davis, Arvida.
No kidding.
And that's how they did it. And the guy came out swinging. He did 2 projects, Jenny, as part of this annexation. And I'm sure they were lobbying the Florida legislature. They did Gables Estates on Old Cutler, and they also did Cocoa Plum. The 2 of these, in addition to that, you also have what is Matheson Hammock, and you have Fairchild Tropical Park. It's all in there, and basically the annexation. And what they did is when they brought this land on, at least according to the research I was doing, they didn't have to stick to the Mediterranean style. So you got the old part of Coral Gables, the original, which is going to be north of Dixie, and then you got the newer part, which is going to be along Old Cutler Road right over there by Coconut Grove. And the other interesting thing about all of that is ultimately they knew the money was in the waterfront. Because remember, cities, the county, and the school board, they make their money on property taxes. So the property tax you could generate off of a waterfront estate rather than something you had in the heart of the city was completely different. So you had this abrupt change that occurred in about 1949, 1950. And that's how we have like a teeter-totter, a yin and a yang in Coral Gables.
Oh wow! I totally forgot about Gables on the sea.
Yes.
In Cocoa Plum and on that area. I totally forgot about it. Every time I think about Coral Gables, I think Miracle Mile, I think the Billmore and that area. But, sure enough, they do have water. But it's only for the 1% of the population. It's a really ritzy part of the Gables. It's just huge lots, with the boat slips. It's not it's not just a regular Gables for everybody. It's just for the richest. And I didn't know that it was an annexation. Oh my God, I'm learning so much in this podcast. It's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, the real concentration of condos in Coral Gables are located in 3 areas effectively. One area will be from Miracle Mile north up to 8th Street or Cayocho. And, well, I guess ultimately the Flagler, because remember, there's a little stretch north of 8th Street that goes all the way to Flagler. But really from 8th Street to Miracle Mile and then Douglas Road going to Lejeune. The second part is going to be Lejeune going west, ultimately to where you get to the roundabout in the Venetian Pool. Venetian Pool is probably a good way to do it. You got another concentration of condos there. And then the third concentration is going to be down on the annex side, on the south side of US 1 in and around the University of Miami. University of Miami, everybody, happens to be located in Coral Gables, for whatever it's worth.
Yes,
so
exactly.
that's where you're going to get your condos. That's where they're all sort of